If you read my email this week or you looked at my blog, then you read my rant about this textese and what's happening to our language as a result of it. It all got started with somebody sending a TY, but it's way, way, way beyond that now. I haven't been able to let it go. And I'm not going to let it go yet. I'm not done with this yet. I feel like Elihu in Job 32 when he said in verse 18, I am full of matter. The Spirit constraineth me, within me constraineth me. Behold, my belly is as wine which hath no vent. It is ready to burst like new bottles. I have been like that all week. My blood pressure has been up. It's a wonder I haven't had a stroke. I literally feel like you described it there. And this is not going to be a softly, easily delivered sermon. It's probably going to be one of the toughest I've ever preached. I'm not going to cut you much slack today. And if you think that I am overreacting, you have already been poisoned. Your brain has already started to go soft with the digital invasion. Now, my reason for my concern, I have several. And let me say this, it is my intention at the end of this service to explain to you why I am in such an outrage. I will show you why. I have precedent, and it will be a precedent against which you will have no argument. There is nothing more important for you to deal with in your life than language, words, how you hear things and how you say things. And you might respond with, well, wait a minute, Pastor Mott. Isn't God more important than language? Can anybody think of an answer to that question? Exactly.
That's it.
Jesus Christ is called the Word. He is the quintessential language. The Trinity exists in the perfection of linguistic communication one with another. God is the author of all language. And do not forget the solemn words of Psalm 138 and verse 2. The last expression in the verse, for thou hast magnified thy word above all thy name. Does that make language important? When God even puts it above His own name? It is important for us to understand that the battle between good and evil that is waged in this war, which is ultimately the battle between God and Satan,
Yes.
is a language war.
Yes.
It all started when God said, in the day thou eatest thereof, speaking of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, thou shalt surely die. Satan came along with his language, his version.
Yes.
Yea, hath God said? Is that what he really meant? And before it was over with, he says, ye shall not surely die, taking what God said and making it the exact opposite.
That's it.
Using language to destroy language. It is a language war. And the psalm that I read to you this morning, that God willing we will get to, but just not yet, will underscore that when I highlight some things that we read together. I sent a copy of my email to Dr. Benjamin Townsend, my pastor friend in Mesick, and also to Keith Hoover, my pastor friend in Mesick. I got this reply from Dr. Townsend. Well done, my friend. I could not agree more and wish I'd said it myself. It has always been a pet peeve of mine about the dumbing down of our language. The first time I heard the word devo, short for devotions, I just about lost my mind. Why would a man get that worked up over something like that? I will explain why. But he ended this missive to me with a sentence that is worth its weight in gold. When we lose words, we lose the ability to communicate the Word.
That's right.
Couldn't have said it better myself. I have a fabulous book. Well, no, I want to give a quote from Webster's Dictionary of the English Language first. Because you see, words, language, is essential to logic. Logic is the reasoning process we utilize when you collect facts and draw a conclusion from those facts. You connect dots in order to understand issues. That's logic in process. That's reasoning in process. What do we often say of people when they don't understand something or don't get something? What do we say? They don't connect the dots. They don't think logically from this to this to this to this, and therefore this is obviously the truth. In Webster's Dictionary of the English Language, logic is defined thusly: the purpose of logic is to direct the intellectual powers in the investigation of truth and in the communication of it to others. When we lose our ability to think logically and connectedly, we lose the means of arriving at the truth.
Yes.
You think somebody out there doesn't know that? And that's why there's an all-out attack on our language. I have an excellent book that I wish would come back into current print. I would probably insist you all get it. Conrad, you were the one that recommended it to me many, many years ago. I still have it. God in heaven only knows how much I've used it. It's called English Composition, a Barnes & Noble outline by C.H. Vivian and B.M. Jackson. Tremendous book on writing, clear thinking, grammar, tremendous book. In this book it says, good writing, and might I insert as well, good speaking. Good writing depends upon clear thinking. We cannot write well unless we have something sensible to say. Conversely, clear thinking depends upon the careful use of language. We cannot think clearly unless we formulate our ideas precisely in words. Essential to logical reasoning is the ability to say accurately what we mean. Without words, we cannot think logically. God created us rational beings, not brute beasts.
That's right.
And that which distinguishes man from beast is his ability to think in language, to communicate in language instead of in howls and whines and grunts as we hear in modern music that doesn't even deserve the name.
That's right.
Amen.
The Bible describes the human tongue as our glory.
Yeah.
My glory rejoiceth, meaning my tongue. Because this is the glory of man, his ability to express his thoughts and to communicate in words, sensible words, words that make sense, that communicate ideas. Now I know you're all excited about this series that I have started last week on the word of the truth of the gospel. And while I am not going to go today where I had intended to go because I have just gotten so on fire about this issue of language, do not think that I have departed from my subject. In fact, you have my permission, to Joe, to put the title of this message, The Word of the Truth of the Gospel, and as a subset, The Language War. Because you see, the gospel, as I pointed to you last Sunday, is the word of truth.
Yes.
It is the word of the truth of the gospel. And I pointed out to you that inasmuch as it is the truth, all of its propositions are logically consistent with each other. And the way we recognize the false gospel is we see the contradictions in it. But if we can't think logically and rationally, we won't see that. It requires the ability to think logically. in order to grasp the propositions of the gospel and to be able to communicate the propositions of the gospel. So Satan, by perverting and destroying language, is destroying our ability to think and reason and clearly communicate, which are all essential to understanding the gospel. So that ultimately, the war on language is a war on the gospel, which is a logical proposition. And God help me, I will show that. You need two things in order to understand the gospel. You need the scriptures that state its propositions, and you need the reasoning power to grasp them. And that is why the Apostle Paul in the book of Acts, when he was presenting the gospel in Acts 17:2, and Paul, as his manner was, went in unto them and 3 Sabbath days reasoned, used logic with them out of the scriptures, opening and alleging that Christ must needs have suffered and risen again from the dead, and that this Jesus whom I preach unto you is Christ. And then on down in Acts chapter 18, Acts 18, the Apostle Paul is in the synagogue, and we read in verse 4, this is at Corinth, and he reasoned in the synagogue, reasoned in the synagogue every Sabbath, and persuaded the Jews and the Greeks. I'm listening to this preacher sometimes from Phoenix, Arizona, Tempe, Arizona, in fact. He is a rank Arminian and despises the doctrine of grace that I preach. And as he criticizes this doctrine, he criticizes the fact that we use reason to arrive at it. That's why he doesn't see it. He criticizes our use of logic. Talk to the average digital dimwit, and all they see is John 3:16, God so loved the world, God is love. And they never get past that. They are incapable of taking that word world and reasoning out to the conclusion that it can only refer to a limited rather than an unlimited number of people. And God structured His Word in such a way as to require us to use our logical reason to arrive at that conclusion. But when you throw logic and reason out the window, you'll never see that. Idiot. So you see what Satan is up to. Several years ago, we had a controversy in our church over whether baptism results in addition to the church or not. And it centered largely on my interpretation of Acts 2, 38 through 41. Verse 38 was quoted by our sister this morning. Then Peter said unto them, Repent and be baptized every one of you in the name of Jesus Christ for the remission of sins, and ye shall receive the gift of the Holy Ghost. For the promise is unto you and to your children and to all that are afar off, even as many as the Lord our God shall call. And with many other words did he testify and exhort, saying, Save yourselves from this generation. Then, you've got a logical sequence. There's been a command to get baptized. Now this results from the giving of that command. Then they that gladly received his word, which embodied the command to be baptized, were baptized. Were they baptized because of what Peter preached? He said, be baptized, cause, effect, then they that gladly received his word were baptized. But that was not the only effect. The sentence didn't end there. And there were added unto them the same day about 3,000 souls, which shows that the addition to the church also occurred in response to the command to be baptized, leaving us with the only conclusion that addition to a church is a result of baptism. That word then is what we call in English grammar a conjunctive adverb, joining two elements together. The argument was made against me that I had deceived the congregation because conjunctive adverbs only join two main clauses together. The argument being that the only main clause in verse 41 that was being joined to the main clause in verse 40 was that first one. Then they that gladly received his word were baptized. That conjunctive adverbs only join two clauses together, where I was arguing that it was joining the whole sentence to what went before, which happens to be two main clauses. They that gladly received his word were baptized, being the first main clause, and there were added unto them the same day about 3,000 souls, being the second main clause. And to prove his point, he was pulling out English grammar books that would say conjunctive adverbs join together, connect together two main clauses. I had an older grammar book that I referenced that said it joins together clauses. It can join together clauses, sentences, and paragraphs. He ignored that and went on to argue it could only join two main clauses. Something that sadly occurred to me later that I wish I had had at the time to bring forward is this fact. He was quoting modern grammar books. And in modern English, we write short sentences. We don't write longer, more complex sentences that consist of more than one clause. But back in the day, in the Bible day, back in the older era, they would pay attention sometimes to the sentences in your Bible. They're long sentences with multiple clauses, main clauses, and subordinating clauses. This is the way they wrote when people were more literate than they are now. After Don Dirkscheide's father deceased, Don Dirkscheide comes from German background. Dirkscheide is as German a name as you're going to get anywhere. Dirkscheide. And he gave to me some books that had been in his father's library. They're old German books, and I mean old, written in the old Buchstabe. And these are good stories. In fact, I'm reading one right now. And I remember one of these books that I was reading, noticing that there was a sentence in this book written in the old-style German that it was an entire paragraph. One paragraph, several lines of text, one sentence. And I submit to you a conjunctive adverb can connect that whole paragraph to an element going before it. Amen. And I can show you numerous biblical examples of that. But here's my point. Modern English, our mode of expression has shrunk. We don't write longer, more complex sentences with multiple clauses and subordinating conjunct clauses and so forth. Dependent clauses. We don't do that now. We are writing shorter sentences. But nowadays, with the advent of the digital revolution and with texting and so forth, we're not even writing complete sentences. People, we're not even writing out complete words. You got that right. I.e. textees. Not even complete words. As in TY for thank you. But this is the one that gets the goat. Hold your seat now. I told you I'm not being nice. But let me tell you something at the outset. As tough as I plan to be and as brutal as I plan to be, it comes from a heart of love and concern for every one of you. I've been your pastor for going on 40 years. If I haven't proven to you people yet that I care about you and I love you, then I'm over. And I'm done. But I have a grievous concern. Now, you take the word okay. O-K-A-Y. We abbreviate it as it is to O-K instead of O-K-A-Y. It is not uncommon nowadays. You text somebody something like this. I'll meet you at the restaurant at 6:30. And this is the response you will get. K. Too damned. I said it on purpose. Lazy to type an O in front of a K. I thought these devices were supposed to save us time. Must not be doing a very good job if we're in such a hurry we can't even type an O in front of a K. People, this reduction of language is serious business. I never read the book, but I've heard about the book over the years, and I've done a little research on this. Did any of you ever read the book that was published in 1949 called 1984 by George Orwell? George Orwell wrote of a coming age of a totalitarian state in which there would be developed what would be called newspeak, a new language for the masses under the totalitarian state. I'm reading to you. In the world of 1984, newspeak is a controlled language, listen, of restricted grammar and limited vocabulary. A linguistic design meant to limit the freedom of thought.
Yes.
We think with words. Reduce words. You reduce the range of thought. It is meant to limit the freedom of thought, of such things as personal identity, self-expression, free will, that ideologically threatens the regime of Big Brother and the party, who thus criminalized such concepts as thought crime. Listen. In Newspeak, root words function as nouns and verbs. In other words, the root word think is now used as a noun and a verb. Root words function as nouns and verbs, which practice further reduced the total number of words available to the speaker. For example, think is both a noun and a verb. Thus, the word thought is not required to communicate think. What is your think instead of what is your thought? Write out your thinks rather than write out your thoughts. Get rid of the word thought. And therefore, thought can be abolished from the language. The party also intended that newspeak be spoken in staccato rhythm with syllables that are easy to pronounce. We don't want long, complicated words, which shall facilitate automatic and unconscious speech, thereby diminishing the likelihood of critical thought. Develop a language that destroys the ability of people to think critically and rationally and therefore think their way out of a lie. The linguistic design of newspeak is for thought control. By diminishment of the user's range of thought, which is realized with a minimal vocabulary of limited denotation and connotation. Oh, but get this one. As a controlled language, newspeak influences and limits thought by decreasing the range of expressiveness of the English language, wherein words serve as nouns and verbs. But then here's one word they have inserted. Listen to this, people. Listen. This is a word they have inserted in newspeak. It is the word black-white. Black-white. The word black-white denotes newspeak users' ability to believe that black is white, and to know that black is white, and to forget that one has ever believed the contrary. Yet it has two contradictory connotations. Applied to an opponent of Ingsoc, that's English socialism, applied to an opponent impudently claiming that black is white in contradiction of the plain facts, and applied to a member of the party, a loyal willingness to say that black is white when party discipline demands. Moreover, as newspeak, the word black-white is an example of the party's doublethink, which rewrites the past. It was brought to my attention, my son-in-law Jared brought it to my attention. They're not only people shrinking the language, shrinking the vocabulary, they're shrinking the history.
That's right. And
rewriting the history. I graduated from Forest. I did not graduate, sorry. I graduated from Woodlawn High School in Birmingham. But I went to Forest High School in Jacksonville, Florida. Forest High School was named after one of the great Confederate generals, Forrest. I forget his first name. Bedford Forrest. That's what the school was named after. I looked at that section of town online the other day. They've changed the name of the school. Yeah. They've changed the name of the school. They're wanting to take down some of the stained glass windows in the cathedral in Washington that commemorate some of the Confederate generals. Robert E. Lee was one of the most respected men in the United States before the Civil War, during the Civil War, and after the Civil War. Yes. Everything the South contended for and everything they tried to was not wrong. But we rewrite history to accommodate people so that they don't get their precious little feelings hurt. No, I'm not an advocate of the abuse of slavery. But there was more at stake there than just that. Like states' rights. Now, this brings me to the use of the digital devices, because this is all a major player in the destruction of our language and our inability to think deeply and logically and connectedly and protractedly. The college where our sister Emily Towers is going to learn chiropractic is the same college that Dr. Bridget Bowler went to in South Carolina. Many of you have gone to Dr. Bowler, as have I. The last time I was there to visit Dr. Bowler, we were talking about what's happening with the digital invasion. And she said in her last visit to the college, she was told that they are going to have to redo how they teach the millennials because their attention span is so short. You think I'm going to let one of those clowns crack my neck? Because everything's in little bites. Fast, 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 fast. Distraction, 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 distraction. Thus reducing the attention span. People, in order for me to convert people to the gospel of the grace of God in truth, I've got to be able to hold their attention for a while and walk them through point by point by point by point. How am I going to present the gospel in a generation of digital dummies? Satan knows what he's doing. In the book that I had the men go over in the men's meetings called The Digital Invasion by Dr. Archibald Hart, Dr. Sylvia Hart-Fredged, that I referenced in that email this week, they said, find the spot here where it was said, scientists tell us that we are already seeing a diminished ability to reflect, meditate, or contemplate in those who over-engage with the digital world. With the decreased abilities, our intellectual capacity is also on the decline. If we can't disengage, why do you think they're having to rethink how they teach millennials? Huh? Why do you think they're rethinking that? Because of this. If we can't disengage from our digital technology and keep a vital God space alive, we may not be able to engage with God at all. We will not have the physical brain mechanisms to make the connection. Moreover, just in case you think this is a little far-fetched, it would only take a neurosurgeon a minute to cut a few connections in the brain, and our ability to experience God would be gone. Another leading neuroscientist who has researched this topic is Andrew Newberg. He explains breakthrough findings in his book, How God Changes Your Brain. It deals with how the frontal lobe in your brain creates and integrates all of your ideas about God, both positive or negative, including the logic you use to evaluate your religious and spiritual beliefs. It predicts your future relationship to God and attempts to intellectually answer all the why, what, and where questions raised by spiritual issues. That's your frontal lobe, people. But guess what? In essence, he states that when the prefrontal lobe of our brain, the part that does the main thinking, gets overloaded, it begins to shut itself down. Guess what is in our modern world that overloads the frontal part of the brain? Today's digital invasion not only targets the frontal part of the brain, not only overusing it, but also depleting it of simple energy. This impairs our ability to think deeply and consequently communicate with God in a meaningful way. That's science. That's not Ben Mott's opinion. That's the science. And it's coming out more and more and more. Yes, but I hear the argument. But Pastor Mott, are you saying we should get rid of our computers and we should get rid of our cell phones? But what about the refrigerator? But what about the automobile? But what about the house? But what about the electrical light? But what about all of these other advances in technology? But. You people think I'm stupid? No. Pastor Mott, what are you arguing? You want us to go back and live like savages, live like nomads in the desert before we had all this modern technology? Is this what you're arguing for? But. Listen, I know about all those buts. I have one. Butthead. Stop your butting, butthead, and think for a minute. Because there is a huge difference. That's right. Between a technology that keeps our meat frozen and our milk cool, a technology that gives us light to walk in our dark houses, a technology that heats our water so we can take a hot shower, a technology that enables us to go 50 miles in the space of an hour, and a technology that changes how we think, changes our brains, how we process information, how we communicate, and thus changes what we are. And as far as this thing of going back and living like savages, butt brain, think. Go to a public high school when it lets out. Go to a shopping mall. Go to the gym. And see the people with tattoos all over their bodies, body piercings all over the place, goofy hairdos, the music, boom, 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 and listen to them talk. People, we have never had more technological convenience since the flood, and we have never been more savage.
You got that right.
Savages love to go naked. We guys have all had to turn our heads away when we looked at the pictures of the women in National Geographic in the jungles with their bare breasts. Look at women nowadays in the summertime, bare breasts. Wearing these yoga pants that leave nothing hidden. All the curves and the shapes outlined, and what person with half a brain doesn't know men are turned on by that. And the men, they're walking with their pants halfway down the butt, showing their underwear, sometimes showing their bare butts. I've seen it. We are living in the butt generation, people. I'm serious. When you hang around the gym, you realize that more premium is placed nowadays on having a beautiful butt than having an educated brain.
You got it.
We are living in a butt society. The butt end of civilization. Right at it. And furthermore, let this sink down into your digitally damaged brains. The statement I'm about to make. I want to leave it with you. Don't forget it. It's not complicated. Listen. Convenience does not equal civilization.
That's it.
Just because the two words begin with a C, they don't mean the same thing. Convenience does not equal civilization. We've never had more convenience. We have never been more becoming uncivilized. Our old forefathers, you read the writings of the Puritans that had no telephones, no televisions, no internet, and read their writings. The average digital dimwit couldn't figure out what they were even talking about. I've read Stephen Charnock on the attributes of God, and every sentence is pregnant with meaning. Powerful, dripping with deep and penetrating thought. Civilization, convenience doesn't equal civilization. Did you get it? So when I'm arguing about these devices, be careful how you come back with this but stuff. Things different are not the same. The sad thing in all of this is that we are letting these devices do our thinking for us. That's the problem. Look, on my iPad, when I go to write a text, when I start out, say I'm going to say in my text, I think. When I start to type the word think, T-H-I, straight away I will be given 3 options at the bottom. Think, this, or something else that has a T-H-I that I don't even have to finish spelling the word. I go, beep. Too damn lazy to write the sentence? You say, why are you cussing? I will tell you later. Digital dimwits. I'll explain it later. But we're letting our devices do our thinking for us. Look at the kids that can't count. So you go to the store and you buy something that costs $2.96. And you give the clerk an extra penny because you want to get a nickel back instead of 4 cents. They can't do it. I'm serious. They can't do it. It blows. If it isn't what's on that computer, they can't even think that deeply. Mathematics. I mean, it's pitiful. Pitiful. In the fabulous book, The Shallows by Nicholas Carr, he had this to say. The introduction of new storage and recording media throughout the last century, audio tapes, videotapes, microfilm and microfiche, photocopiers, calculators, computer drives, greatly expanded the scope and availability of artificial memory. Committing information to one's own mind seemed ever less essential. The net quickly came to be seen as a replacement for, rather than just a supplement to, personal memory. David Brooks, the popular New York Times columnist, makes a similar point. He said, I had thought that the magic of the information age was that it allowed us to know more. He writes, but then I realized the magic of the information age is that it allows us to know less. Perfectly fulfilling the prophecy that Paul made regarding the perilous times in the last days when he said they'll be ever learning and never able to come to the knowledge of the truth. We've never had more knowledge at our fingertips only to know so far less. Why do I have to bother to remember? All I've got to do is ask Siri. I don't even have to type it on the screen. The only problem is Siri doesn't understand plain English half the time. Rather than memorize information, we now store it digitally and just remember what we stored. As the web teaches us to think like it does, he says, we'll end up keeping rather little deep knowledge in our own heads. Dan Tapscott, the technology writer, puts it more bluntly. Now that we can look up anything with a click on Google, he says, memorizing long passages or historical facts is obsolete. Memorization is a waste of time. Is it? Is it? When in 1892 lecture before a group of teachers, William James declared that the art of remembering is the art of thinking, he was stating the obvious. Now his words seem old-fashioned. Turn in your Bible to Matthew 16. People do not sacrifice the exercise of memory to digital devices. Don't sacrifice your mental functions to those digital devices, thus causing your brain to go soft, your ability to think deeply, connectedly, and protractedly gone. I study foreign languages. They say that's one of the best things you can do to counteract dementia. I don't know whether that's true or not, but I've heard that. You know one of the things that's good about studying another language? Because in order to utilize it, guess what? You have to remember the words to call them out, to communicate. Nowadays, these digital devices will translate it all for you. You don't even have to bother learning the language. Do you see what we're doing, people? We're giving up our mental skills to a device to do it for us. If you don't exercise your muscles, they go soft. You don't exercise your brain, it goes soft. And we're going to present the logical concepts of the gospel to a bunch of soft heads that are more concerned about their feelings being hurt by politically incorrect statements than they are about truth.
You got it.
Talk about savage. What did the savages do? This occurred to me the other day. This textese thing. I remember when I first got a cell phone and I used it in the Philippines, and I did a lot of texting because in the Philippines that's the principal mode of communication. Landlines are very expensive and using their phones are expensive, and the people are poor, so they text like crazy. And I would communicate that way, and I caught myself putting 4 for 4 and R for R. Oh, it was new. See, Pastor Mott never did things like that. It was cute back then. It's not cute now. And I'm not proud of it. Because you know what happens? We jump on these bandwagons, people, and we don't even think about what we're doing. Haven't I taught you all? Search and try your ways. Think about what you're doing when you do it. And I got a brainstorm the other day. I think these little pictures you can put with your texts are cute as all get out. But the sad thing is now people are communicating with those pictures. They call them emoticons. Instead of writing, now we're using pictures like cavemen drawing pictures on the wall so you'll know what happened when they shot a deer. And you say, I'm talking about going back to living like a savage. We're there!
Neanderthal thumb tapping.
Exactly. Textese is nothing more than caveman grunts. It's true. It's true. Shame on anybody that's addicted to these things, as I know people in here have been and some likely are. We are relegating the function of memory to digital devices. But when you lose your memory, people, you lose your ability to understand. See, for you to really get the most out of my messages, you've got to remember things I've said before, because information I'm giving you today is plugging into that.
That's right.
Well, if the minute you get out of that door, the first impulse you have is to check your phone, and then the rest of the day you're back on the device, checking the sporting scores, checking this, checking that, checking this, checking that. By the end of the day, you can't even remember what I said.
You got that.
It slipped right out. Well, that's going to hinder you being able to understand what I say, because you lose the hooks to connect the information on. Look, listen to Jesus Christ. This is some of the most powerful stuff you'll ever read. Jesus says in verse 6 to the disciples, "Take heed and beware of the leaven of the Pharisees and of the Sadducees." And they reasoned among themselves, saying, "It is because we've taken no bread." Which when Jesus perceived, he said unto them, O ye little faith, why reason ye among yourselves, because you bought no bread? Do you not yet understand? Neither remember the 5 loaves of the 5 loaves of the 5,000, how many baskets you took up? Neither the 7 loaves of the 4,000, how many baskets you took up? How is it that you do not understand? You see, the point is, they didn't understand because they didn't remember. You lose your ability to remember. You lose your ability to understand. Anybody that has ever had the horrible, horrible misfortune of a loved one falling prey to Alzheimer's disease, where they lose their memory, understands what I'm talking about. You try to carry on conversations. They can't grasp what you're saying because they forget it as soon as you say it. And what happens is that when people lose the ability to remember, they lose themselves. When your loved one can't remember, you lose the person you knew, because memory goes into what we are. And this is why they will say things they never would have said before, because they don't remember what they were before. All of those restraints and customs and habits that were part of their persona are gone. This is a media that reaches in and cuts out what makes us human, rational, and able to understand. With the advancement of digital technology, look at what's happening to people's linguistic ability. Now, this is where it's going to start to sting. This is where it's going to start to hurt. Nowadays, and it's true of people in this room, because it is so ubiquitous, I catch myself doing it. A few years ago, Jim Wood issued a criticism. He said, "You're using the word actually a lot in your sermons." I appreciated him pointing that out. Not that I appreciate every criticism, Jim. Some are fair and some aren't. But that was a good one. I wasn't aware of it. And I started listening and noticing, and I thought, where is this coming from? Then I started listening to the general public and realizing it was the common catchword that people were rattling off without even realizing what they were doing, and I made conscience of it, and I stopped it. Now the big one is like. Everything's like. I got up this morning and like it was really cold. Listen, was it cold or was it not? What's this like cold crap? I went to the shoe store the other day to buy some shoes. I ended up not buying any because they were like so expensive. What's that supposed to mean? Well, you know, Pastor Mott, he's like a really good preacher. He brings like really good sermons. Let me tell you something, people. I don't want to be like good, because I happen to know somebody that's like good. You know who it is? His Majesty the devil, that transforms himself into an angel of light. I don't want to be like a good preacher, because I know of some like good preachers that are Satan's ministers, transformed into ministers of righteousness, called by our Lord wolves in sheep's clothing. Like good preachers. What's this like crap? Jesus Christ said this in Matthew chapter 5 and verse 37. Start paying attention to yourself. What purpose is that look like serving in your language? What's it accomplishing? Nothing. It is nothing more than useless clutter. Well, what do you do with useless clutter that's all around the floor in your house? If you're any kind of an housekeeper like you should be, you put it in the garbage. You know what it's called? Cleaning it up. Clean up your mouth. Clean it up. Start paying attention to how you're talking and get rid of that useless verbiage. The Son of God said in Matthew 5, I told you this wasn't going to be easy. Matthew 5:37, let your communication be yea, yea, not yea like yea, and nay, nay, not nay like nay. For whatsoever is more of these cometh of evil. Remember, we'll give an account for every idle word we utter in the judgment. But you see what Satan is doing, people? Satan is in the business of filling our language with a bunch of useless words, thus reducing the effectiveness of it, so that people are not even directly, plainly communicating in clear statements. It's a bunch of similes, look. And then it's interspersing this. You know what I'm saying? You know what I mean? I mean, it's like they have a sense that they aren't communicating. So I better make sure people understand what I'm saying. We all fall in these traps, people, because everybody's doing it. Satan is in the business of stripping words of their primary meanings and outright destroying them. That's right. This is a war on language. It's a language war. Look at it now. These people that are hip, I guess that's what you call them. I don't know. I'm so out of touch. When something is good, they'll say, man, that's bad. They do.
Likewise.
Yeah, that's exactly. That's newspeak black-white. It's no longer good-bad. It's good or bad. It's good-bad. That's exactly it. Thank you, Conrad. Brilliant point. That's newspeak. That's black-white. Have we forgotten the words of Isaiah 5:20? Woe unto them that call evil good and good evil, and put darkness for light and light for darkness, black-white, and put bitter for sweet and sweet for bitter. You've heard me say it till you're probably tired of it. Smearing is art, racket is music, ugly is pretty. I mean, ugly. I mean, you see these guys at the gym with these beautiful physiques that they've worked to build, all tattooed up. What's that going to look like when they start coming like a wrinkled old prune like I am? Born in 1984 in Roman numerals. What's that going to look like when it... Picture my girlfriend. What's she going to look like in 20 years? That's your girlfriend, man? You can't do any better than that? Lord have mercy. Oh, Pastor Mott, are you saying we should go back living like savages? Come on, don't insult my intelligence. We are living like savages. Gay means sodomite. Yeah. Satan is using language to destroy language, which brings me to a point. Go to Psalm 140. I got to get this message done. But I'm on a roll. And I'm full of matter, and I got to get my belly vent. Sorry, Emma, this isn't exactly a real sweetie sermon on the day that you made your confession of faith. But you know what? Listening to that brilliant statement of faith, so beautifully worded, maybe this sermon does fit it. Yes. Maybe this is just the time to say it.
From a child.
Out of the mouth of babes, said the Son of God is thou ordained strength. And when we've got children that can talk better than grown adults, it's a shame. My prayer for the young people in this church is constantly, let our sons be as plants grown up in their youth, and our daughters as cornerstones polished after the similitude of a palace. And you young people back there, if you've fallen into that like trap, clean it up. Amen. And set an example to your friends of how people, Christians, Bible believers, are supposed to talk. We say, well, I like to go to the Detroit church because the church is into the Bible. But is the Bible into us? Amen. Speak as the oracles of God, the Bible says. We've obviously got a war of words. Language is one of the most powerful forces in the universe. It is a wonderful force for good. It is a great means of edification and construction. My friends, God built the universe with language. But in order for language to be constructive and useful, it must be contained and managed by careful definition of its terms, proper grammatical structure, linking the words together to make clear thoughts, communicating ideas clearly with proper intent. But when language is taken outside those boundaries, it becomes one of the most lethal and destructive forces in the universe. It's the language war. And when we come to Psalm 40, we have obviously a battle going on. And the psalmist interceding with God in the midst of this battle. He is under the assault of the violent man, of the evil man that are continually gathered together for war. But one of the things that jumps out of the page as we read this psalm is this is a language war. Because look, verse 3, they have sharpened their tongues like a serpent. Yeah. Look at a serpent when he's ready to strike. Yeah, you get there. Sharpening his tongue for the strike. When we think of these sharpened tongues, let me compare a few passages here just quickly. In Psalm chapter 52 and verse 2 through 4. I'm sorry. Thy tongue deviseth mischiefs like a sharp razor, working deceitfully. Thy tongue deviseth mischief like a sharp razor, working deceitfully. Thou lovest evil more than good, and lying rather than to speak righteousness. Selah. Thou lovest all devouring words, O thou deceitful tongue. The tongue can edify, the tongue can devour. It can be healthy, it can be lethal.
Yes.
Depending on how it is used. It is a war of words. Go on down to chapter 57 and verse 4, Psalm 57:4. My soul is among lions, and I lie even among them that are set on fire, even the sons of men whose teeth are spears and arrows, and their tongue a sharp sword. Psalm 64, 2 through 3. Hide me from the secret counsel of the wicked, from the insurrection of the workers of iniquity, who whet their tongue like a sword, and bend their bows to shoot their arrows, even bitter words, that they may shoot in secret at the perfect. Suddenly do they shoot at him and fear not. And then lastly, Proverbs chapter 30 and verse 14. There is a generation whose teeth are as swords, and their jaw teeth as knives. The wicked are sharpening their tongues like swords. Sharpening their tongues like swords. When you sharpen a sword with the application of friction, you are doing it for the purpose of maximizing the destructive effect of your weapon so that it cuts deeper, faster, and more lethally. And the devil is doing that with language. None of this stuff is happening by accident. This is happening by design. To make the misuse of language all the more lethal. And destroying men's ability to think and rationally perceive concepts as they are presented by God in His Word. Just as Paul described it when he said we're to be delivered from, that we be not children tossed to and fro with every wind of doctrine by the sleight of men and cunning craftiness whereby they lie in wait to deceive, using their ingenuity to maximize the lethal effect of their deception. Now, one of the things I will get through, I think I still have your attention. I kind of quasi think I do. If I don't, get with it. But one thing that I have told you before, listen to me, people, this is dynamite. This is dynamite. This makes me almost want to tremble when I think about this. In the book of Job 38 and verse 35, canst thou send out lightnings that they may go and say unto thee, here we are? This is eerie, because you know what lightning is? It is electric current. And this is giving us a hint, not a hint, it's letting us know that electric current can be utilized to send messages, to communicate, to take what we do with our tongues when we say words and transport them at lightning speed. Wow. But who does not know when you talk about lightning, you're talking about something that can be deadly. How many people have died from lightning strikes? Lee Morrison witnessed his own father struck dead by lightning. How many forests have been destroyed by lightning? How many homes, villages have been destroyed by fires ignited by lightning? Electric current can be very destructive. Now, it can be very constructive.
That's right.
For example, when you properly harness electric current, you can use it to accomplish work. We do it all the time. But electric current not properly managed and contained is destructive. It's lethal. Many have died from electric shock because of the mismanagement of electric current. Are you seeing an analogy here, people, between language and electric current? Language properly channeled, properly managed is constructive. Not properly managed is destructive, just like electric current. Improperly managed language is lethal. Improperly managed electric current is lethal. Misuse of electric current can be lethal. So guess what? You take language, this potentially lethal thing when mismanaged, and you put it on the back of electric current, this thing that can also be so potentially lethal, and you send it throughout the earth. You have exponentially maximized the destructive potential of the tongue beyond anything you and I can imagine. Now let me show you something that should blow your socks off. Turn over to James chapter 3. And remember what happens with improperly managed electric current. It creates fires, destructive fires. James 3 and verse 6. The last phrase of verse 5. Behold, how great a matter a little fire kindleth. And the tongue is a fire, a world of iniquity. So the tongue is a fire. So is the tongue among our members. And it defileth the whole body, and setteth on fire the course of nature, and is set on fire of hell. That word course comes from a word that can also be rendered wheel, referring to a circuit. You take the lethal power of the tongue and you put that on the back of electric circuit and send that thing running, and it'll traverse the whole course of nature, go round the world wreaking destruction, which is exactly what it's doing. You take those two forces and marry them. Oh yes, but you can take the truth and put it on the back of electricity and send it out. Yes, I agree with that, and yes, it accomplishes some good. But I find it passing strange that I've never had more exposure in my life through electronic medium, digital medium, of my messages and less return. When we read of the times of the apostles, when they didn't even have a printing press, and they turned the world upside down. Because you see, God says, it's not by my power, nor by might, but by my Spirit. This is sobering. Sets on fire the course of nature. Where do you think this whole homosexual agenda starts? The tongue, the message, the communication. Because remember, the tongue defiles the body. That's where it starts. And then you take that message and you put that thing on electric current through television and talk shows, pushing that agenda, and you talk about setting on fire the course of nature. It's happening before our very eyes. I tell you, this book's on top. You think that's something. Let's go back and let's look at Psalm 140, and I will get done. In Psalm 40, I promise you'll be out of here by 2 o'clock. Psalm 40, look, this is a verbal war. Look at that, verse 3. They've sharpened their tongues. Adder's poison is under their lips. And then go on down in verse 9. As for the head of those that compass me about, let the mischief of their own lips cover them. Let burning coals fall upon them. Let them be cast into the fire, into deep pits that they rise not up again. Let not an evil speaker be established in the earth. You getting the idea? That we've got a war of words going on here. We've got a language war going on here. Now let me show you something that is very eerie, that is being employed in this language war. Read it on the page. Verse 8. Grant not, O Lord, the desires of the wicked. Further not his wicked device. He's got a device. Now I know that word primarily refers like to a plot or a scheme or a stratagem. But who does not know that in formulating a scheme and a plot and a stratagem, you also develop the devices to carry it out? Oh, I'm not done. If you don't think that's strong enough, just wait. Just wait. This digital technology we have today is purposefully designed to be addicting. There was a documentary on 60 Minutes, a young man that had worked for Google that had left and was sounding out that they purposefully designed that stuff to keep you going back, to get you hooked on it. It's addicting. An addicting device. But Pastor Mott, it's so convenient. I want an iPhone. It's convenient. It's so convenient. I got a smartphone. I like it. It's convenient. You can find the cheaper gas. You can buy things for cheaper prices. You can take pictures with it. It'll turn your lights on. It'll control your thermostat. You can do your banking on it. You can even put your credit card on it. You don't even have to take money. You don't even have to take your card with you. You don't even have to have a wallet. You can just have your phone. It'll tell you where to go. It'll spell your words for you. It'll do your calculations. You can write your lists on it. And on and on. It's so convenient. It's so convenient. Listen to me, you bunch of digital dimwits. That's the trap. The convenience is the trap. The more things you do with it, the more convenient you avail yourself of its conveniences, the more tied to it you are, and the harder it is to get away from it. But notice, in this war of words, where the devil, through the electronic medium, is getting into our brains and altering how we think, interfering with our ability to think in logical, reasoned propositions verbally. Notice something about that. While you're in Psalm 140, look at verse 5. The proud have hid a snare for me. And cords, there's a trap, but it's hidden where you don't think it is. They have spread a net by the wayside. They have set gins for me, Selah. Gins. They have set gins for me. Listen, if I've still got your attention, unless you're so digitally soft, I lost you about 3/4 of the way back there. If I have not lost you in this message, there is hope. Amen. Maybe you're not so digitally dim-witted after all. But listen to the definition of gin, your English definition. First and foremost, it means skill or ingenuity. Secondly, as that definition is expanded out in application, an instance or product of ingenuity, a contrivance, scheme or device, a project of ingenuity. A mechanical contrivance or device, a machine, like an engine, cognative of the word gin. 4, specifically, a contrivance for catching game, a snare, net, trap, or the like. Here is a contrivance, obviously the product of brilliant ingenuity, designed to function like a trap. There it is. Psalm 40, welcome to 2017. Now, I know the digital technology is here, and I'm not going to preach it away. I'm not that stupid. Some of you are required to have it for your jobs. Others of you just have it because you want it. But what I want you to do, people, is I want you to recognize that you are holding in your hand or carrying in your pocket a potentially lethal weapon. Yes. Do not view it as your companion or as your friend. It is a lethal weapon that is designed to destroy your ability to think clearly and logically, and to keep you distracted and entertained to death where you can't concentrate on a sermon if it goes over like this one is. The way I want you to treat your phone is like the trainer in the circus that brings out the lions. A whip in one hand, a chair in the other, and keep your distance. Don't do everything with it you can do with it. Think of ways to do things without it so you don't become so tied to it. Things like maybe do your financial records the old-fashioned way with pencil and paper. Maybe do crossword puzzles on paper or magazine, not on a device. Maybe draw pictures. Maybe actually do the, God forbid, turn it all off and sit down with your spouse and look each other in the eye and have a heart-to-heart conversation. Go visit a friend instead of text. Do what Linda and I did one night when we gave up our Friday night movie to go play board games with Matt's family. Enjoyed it so famously. I got to know you better, Josh, than ever got to know you before. You've got a personality. You sit there quiet every Sunday. This kid's eating up with personality. You get him into a board game and, man, he comes alive. Of course, I'm not telling the roomers anything they don't know. Sometimes he comes a little too alive. But anyway, we love him. But you see what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying? Like, come on. Like really? Like, yeah, you know. Think of ways. Get creative. And if you can't get creative on ways to do things without your device, your brain's already gone soft. Read a book. Instead of relying on your device to look up a word, actually get off your fat butt. Remember, we're in the butt age. Get off your butt and go look it up in a dictionary in a book. Old-fashioned way. Make lists on paper with your hands. And don't take it everywhere you go. If you go out to the barn or go out to the yard, leave it inside. Put distance between you and that lethal lion in your pocket that's out, was designed by the devil to destroy you. Don't see it as your friend. Think. That might be a good thing for a discussion at a men's meeting. Things to do without a device. Greg's not here today, Jim, but you'll pass the idea on. And then lastly, Pastor Mott, what's all this stomping and raging and name-calling, digital dimwits and butt heads and digital dummies and cussing and saying damn in the pulpit? What Pastor Mott, whence comes this? Are you ready now? Turn over the book of Nehemiah. But I want to ask you a question. Conrad, you were a Marine. You are a Marine. Jim Wood, you are a Marine. Ed, you were in the Army. Dennis, you were in the Army. Jason Coravilla's not here. I'd call him as a witness. When you guys were in basic training, how much regard did your sergeants have for your pitiful little feelings being hurt? Did they ever cuss you? Did they ever call you names?
They used their fists to let us feel.
Yes. You know why they did that? For the same reason I'm doing this today. To toughen you up for the battle. But let me tell you something about those old commanders that were so tough on their troops. These are the same men that would weep in silence for the battle they would send their boys into. Would weep in secret. The reason for this today is to toughen you bunch of nipple-sucking babies. Get off the breast of the cell phone. And be men. And think for yourselves rather than letting someone else think for you like little babies need. Look at the people. Look at the people. They're literally walking around like this. Dogs on a leash. You know I'm not exaggerating. When you sit down in a doctor's office, what's your first urge? When I go meet somebody for dinner or breakfast or whatever, many times when I walk in the door, if I get there after them, you want to guess what they're doing? What everybody else is doing on a device. You can't sit there and connect with yourself. Maybe just think. Just meditate. Just sit and look around the room and gauge the tenor of the times we live in. Here's my reason for all this hoopla, cussing, fit, and raging. Here it is. Verse 23. Let me read verse 25 of chapter 13. Nehemiah 13:25. I'm going to close out on this. 13:25. I don't often go this long, but once in a while I'm on a roll, and I do. I don't think I bored you, though.
Preaching.
And I contended with them. This is Nehemiah, the man of God, the leader of the people. I contended with them and cursed them and smote certain of them and plucked off their hair. I'm glad I'm not in that crowd. And made them swear by God, saying, you shall not give your daughters unto their sons, nor take their daughters unto your sons or for yourselves. But what provoked this? Outrage. Look at verse 23. And in those days also I saw the Jews that had married wives of Ashdod, of Ammon, and of Moab, and their children spake half in the speech of Ashdod, and could not speak in the Jews' language, but according to the language of each people. It was because of the way they were talking. It was the language issue. They couldn't speak the Jews' language, which was the language of the Bible. They were speaking the language of Ashdod, like people today are speaking the language of the savages. It was a language issue that set that man of God on a rampage, a cussing rampage. And it's what set this man of God on his. Amen. Well, we'll get back, we'll continue, God willing, on the theme of the word of the truth of the gospel next Sunday, unless somebody sends me something in the week that gets me on another rampage. I bet I don't get any emails this week. You want to hear grace, don't you? And if you know, and there are books, people. There are books like The Digital Diet, The Digital Invasion, What the Internet is Doing to Our Brains, The Shallows. There's all kinds of books out there that'll give you all kind of suggestions on how to control this stuff instead of letting it control you. Destroy your families. Let's sing that happen.